In 1958, in a quiet suburb outside Detroit, engineers working for a major American chemical company made a decision that would quietly reshape the psychology of an entire nation, by choosing a color for a traffic cone. For decades, road hazards had been marked with red flags, red lanterns, or dull yellow barriers. But red, it turned out, had a fatal flaw. In fog, at dusk, or under the sodium vapor streetlights that were spreading across American highways, red faded into the background almost invisibly. Drivers were slamming into road crews they never saw coming. So safety researchers went looking for the one color the human eye could not lose, not in fog, not at dusk, not against asphalt, not against grass, not against snow. They found it in a shade almost nobody had taken seriously before. Orange. Within a decade, it wasn't just cones. It was prison jumpsuits, life rafts, hunting vests, black boxes on airplanes, and hazard suits. One color, quietly chosen for a single practical reason, was about to become the most important warning signal on the planet, and almost nobody watching it happen realized why. The reason orange worked wasn't just about how bright it looked. It was about where it sat in the human eye. Researchers studying visibility under low light and fog conditions found that orange occupies a strange sweet spot in the visible spectrum, a wavelength long enough to cut through mist and haze far better than blue or green, yet distinct enough from natural backgrounds that it almost never occurs by accident in the environment around it. Very few natural materials in a typical outdoor scene are pure, saturated orange. Which meant that the moment your eye caught it, your brain had almost no competing explanation for what it was looking at except one word: danger. Look here. Within a single generation, orange went from being a relatively minor color in most people's daily lives to becoming the loudest nonverbal command in the industrialized world. Stop, notice, be careful, someone is watching you. But here's the twist nobody expected. The very same color, engineered purely for alarm and hazard, was about to become one of the most joyful, appetite triggering colors ever used in advertising. Sometimes in the very same decade. Here is where the story turns from engineering into the human mind. Orange sits at the meeting point of red and yellow on the color wheel, and researchers studying color emotion associations have long noted that it inherits psychological qualities from both. From red, it borrows urgency and physical arousal. From yellow, it borrows warmth, optimism, and association with food and energy. This dual inheritance is what makes orange so behaviorally strange. It is simultaneously one of the most effective danger signals ever adopted by industrial design, and one of the most commonly used colors in fast food branding worldwide. McDonald's, Burger King, Fanta, and dozens of others have leaned on orange and its close relatives for the same underlying reason: studies in color and appetite. Research suggests that warm colors in the red-orange range can stimulate hunger cues and a sense of urgency to consume, more reliably than cooler colors like blue or purple, which appear far less often in nature as ripe or edible food. Which raises the central mystery of this episode: how can the exact same color be simultaneously the universal signal for "stay away" and the universal signal for "come eat"? Here is the idea that reframes everything that follows. Orange doesn't actually mean danger, and it doesn't actually mean appetite. It means pay attention to this, right now, and human civilization has repeatedly aimed that same role. Attention-grabbing power at two completely opposite goals: making you afraid, or making you hungry. Once you see orange as a pure attention signal rather than a fixed emotional meaning, its entire contradictory history across centuries suddenly makes sense. Ancient India and Southeast Asia. For over 2,000 years, saffron, a deep orange dye, extracted from crocus flowers, has been worn by Hindu sadhus and Buddhist monks across the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. Historians of religion note that the color was chosen partly for practical reasons. Early dyes were often derived from natural materials like turmeric, ochre, or burnt clay, which were affordable and accessible even to ascetics who had renounced material wealth, and partly for symbolic ones, with the fire-like hue representing purification and the burning away of worldly desire. Renaissance and early modern Europe. Orange as a named color barely existed in English before the fruit itself was introduced from Asia around the 16th century. Before that, English speakers described orange-hued objects as simply yellow-red or red-yellow. The introduction of the citrus fruit didn't just bring a new food, it gave an entire culture the vocabulary to name a color it had struggled to describe before. The House of Orange, 16th to 17th century. Netherlands. The Dutch royal family adopted orange as their signature color, tracing back to the Principality of Orange in southern France ruled by their ancestors. This single dynastic choice is why the modern Dutch national football team still wears orange today, and why Dutch celebrations on national holidays are famously flooded with the color, a royal branding decision from nearly 500 years ago, still visibly alive in a stadium crowd every World Cup. 19th century industrial safety. As mining and rail industries expanded across Britain and the United States, early safety reformers began experimenting with high-visibility colors for warning flags and barriers, eventually converging, decades before the 1958 traffic cone story, on orange and orange-red as the most reliably visible hues in smoke, dust, and low light, the same physical properties that would later make it the default choice for modern hazard equipment. 20th century advertising. By the mid-20th century, food and beverage companies had begun deliberately testing warm colors on packaging and signage. Fast food chains in particular gravitated toward red-orange color schemes, and marketing researchers have since documented that these combinations are associated with faster customer turnover in restaurants. Some researchers have proposed warm colors may subtly encourage customers to eat faster and leave sooner, boosting table turnover, though this remains a studied hypothesis rather than a universally proven law of design. Modern hazard and safety systems. Today, orange marks everything from highway construction to hazmat suits, life vests, prisoner uniforms in several U.S. states, and the orange alert tiers used in numerous national security and weather warning systems, an almost unbroken continuation of the same 1958 discovery that orange is simply the hardest color for the human eye to ignore. Every one of these examples, spanning religious devotion, royal branding, industrial safety, and fast food, keeps circling back to the same underlying mechanism. Orange doesn't create a fixed feeling. It creates focus, and then whatever institution is holding the color decides what that focus should be used for. Here is the thread tying the entire episode together. Orange is the color of forced attention. It has no fixed emotional identity of its own, which is precisely what has made it one of the most flexible tools of persuasion in human history, equally at home, warning you away from danger and pulling you toward a purchase. Every culture and industry we've explored didn't invent a new meaning for orange. They simply borrowed its Raw, undeniable visibility and aimed it at whatever goal mattered most to them: religious humility, royal identity, physical safety, or hunger. Here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Vision researchers studying color perception have found something curious about orange specifically. It sits close to the wavelength range the human eye is most sensitive to in daylight conditions, and some studies on visual attention suggest that orange can trigger faster reaction times in peripheral vision tests compared to several other colors, though findings vary depending on background contrast and lighting conditions. But here's the deeper twist: this heightened visual sensitivity appears to be evolutionarily linked to something surprisingly primal: the ability of early primates to spot ripe, orange-hued fruit against green foliage. Some evolutionary psychologists have proposed that primate color vision itself may have evolved partly to detect exactly this contrast: orange fruit against a green canopy, meaning the same neural machinery that once helped our ancestors find food in a forest may be the very same machinery modern safety engineers accidentally exploited when choosing a color for a traffic cone. This remains a debated hypothesis in evolutionary vision science rather than settled fact, but if even partially true, it means every stop sign, every hazard vest, every prison jumpsuit is quietly activating a food detection system that evolved millions of years before humans existed, repurposed, without anyone planning it, into the language of modern danger. This same duality is everywhere in the world around you today. In fashion, orange remains one of the rarer statement colors in everyday wardrobes, precisely because designers know it demands attention in a way few other colors do, making it a favorite for standout pieces but a risk for anything meant to blend in. In digital interfaces, orange is frequently used for call to action buttons: subscribe, buy now, sign up. Specifically because UX researchers have found warm, high-contrast colors like orange draw the eye faster than cooler tones, making them statistically more likely to be clicked in A/B testing across countless platforms. In sports branding, teams and leagues use orange deliberately to stand out on television broadcasts and in stadiums packed with color, leaning on the same high-visibility science that put it on traffic cones. In education and children's products, orange is frequently used to signal energy, creativity, and playfulness, leaning on its yellow inheritance rather than its red one, proof that the same color can be tuned toward completely different emotional registers, depending entirely on context. In public health messaging, orange remains a standard tier in alert systems: wildfire risk, air quality indexes, security threat levels, precisely because after more than half a century of consistent use, most of the public now associates the color with elevated but not yet critical concern, an entire shared vocabulary built on a single mid-century engineering decision. So what does the research actually establish, carefully separated from speculation? Well-supported findings include orange and red. Orange hues are measurably more visible than red under low light and foggy conditions, which is the documented, physics-based reason for their adoption. In safety equipment, color-emotion association research, including work associated with Andrew Elliott's broader color psychology studies, has found that warm colors like orange are reliably associated in self-report studies with feelings of energy, warmth, and urgency across many, though not all, cultural contexts. More speculative, and explicitly framed that way by The researchers themselves is the evolutionary link between primate fruit detection vision and modern human sensitivity to orange in hazard contexts, an intriguing hypothesis, but one still being actively studied rather than conclusively proven. What's clear is this: orange's power isn't mystical. It's a combination of measurable physics, how the wavelength behaves in real-world lighting, and learned cultural association, layered on top of whatever, if anything, evolution left behind in our visual systems long before color psychology existed as a field. Think about how many times orange has quietly directed your behavior without you noticing. The traffic cone that made you slow down without a single word being spoken. The "by now" button that somehow felt more urgent in orange than it would have in blue. The fast food sign that made you hungrier before you'd even smelled anything. The hazard vest that made you trust a stranger was there to help, purely because of what they were wearing. The wildfire or air quality alert on your phone that raised your heart rate slightly before you'd even read the details. None of these reactions were things you consciously chose. They were built into you, some through cultural repetition over the last century, and possibly, if the researchers are right, some inherited from ancestors who once needed to spot ripe fruit in a green forest to survive. Orange was never really one thing. That was always its power. It has been the humility of a monk's robe, the identity of a 500-year-old royal family, the difference between life and death on a foggy highway, and the reason you suddenly wanted fries you weren't planning to buy, all using the exact same wavelength of light. We think of colors as having fixed personalities: red for danger, blue for calm, green for growth. But orange proves something stranger, that a color's true power isn't in what it means, but in how impossible it is to ignore. Everything else, fear, hunger, reverence, urgency, is simply whatever human beings decided to build on top of that attention, 1 century at a time. The next time a flash of orange catches your eye, before you've even consciously registered why, remember, you're not responding to a color. You're responding to millions of years of biology, and a century of deliberate design, working together in the exact same instant. But if orange is the color of forced attention, there is another color that does something almost the opposite, a color so common, so constantly present in daily life, that the brain has learned to almost stop seeing it at all, right up until the moment it becomes the only thing you can see. A color that has been scientifically linked to concentration, calm, and trust, and, in certain documented conditions, to a measurable loss of appetite so consistent that some restaurants have used it deliberately to slow customers down. A color that surrounds you every single day, in a place you'd never think to look for danger. Next time, on Language of Colors, we uncover the secret history of gray.